Okay, welcome to this month's Think Big session for package. We have a few things on the agenda for today, and I think Ian, you have the first one.
Yep. So we have some Think Big updates, which are always exciting. We have two different content coming up for Think Big to help some other teams in GitLab, as well as even people outside of the company, utilize this as a tool to help teams align on vision. So we have two of them. One of them is a blog post that's going to go on Unfiltered. This is going to focus on the story of how we came together with Think Big, the iterations, how it aligns with GitLab values, despite being a synchronous meeting and stuff like that. And then the other is a single source of truth definition in the handbook of what Think Big is. So reason I'm sharing it with all of you is A, it's exciting because it means this idea is expanding and going to other teams because we have had successes, which is always really powerful. The other is that as members and contributors of Think Big for quite a while now, I was hoping to get some insights from all of you around what kind of content or learnings that you should be included in these two articles. What are things that we did that didn't work very well? What are things that we do that work very well and should be emphasized? Stuff like that. So feel free to jump into either of the issues or the merge requests that are posted in the agenda to add that information. I'd really appreciate it. I'm hoping to get the content out in the next week or two so other teams can start to use it, which will be really exciting. And I think I also have the next update. Yes, research. I love research, and we all know that. The user-validated jobs to be done are out, and they're in the wild, which is really exciting. So as many of you know, we did a survey. We asked our users, are these the things you care about? How important are they to you? Can you stack rank them? Things like that. And we completed it. We've shared it out with some other UX teams through the UX showcase, and they were received really positively. So we know from our users that our jobs to be done are valid, and we know from kind of the strategy side of GitLab that the way we've built them and structured them have matches the way that we're doing them. I think my prediction is that as we move forward, they will become more of a staple in the product design and product management world for measuring our success with heuristics evaluations, as well as understanding places that we can innovate. We also, major props to Nico. Tim and I have both worked on two different MRs to add them to the handbook. And Tim spent quite a bit of time, and I spent way more time than I'd like to admit, and almost threw my laptop out the window. I was so frustrated. And then Nico came in about 8 seconds, made it perfect, which was great. So thank you very much, Nico, for making the jobs to be done look good in the handbook. We shared it all with the release management as well as the growth teams who are also working on their jobs to be done, and they really like the formatting. It's nice, it's easy to look at, really, really good. The most important job story for our jobs to be done revolved around CI. So the most important thing to our users is that when they push a commit or a merge request, that everything auto-magically happens and it gets added to the registry. So that's something we should pay specific attention to when we're thinking about stability, as well as just what that experience is like for setting it up or confirming that it built the way we wanted it to. I think I've shared this before, but there's 8 unique insights. If you want to go into the issue for our user validation for the jobs to be done, and you can kind of see the architecture and the insights that we gathered from that about why they were thinking what they were thinking. A couple of pull quotes as well. So this is really exciting stuff. Any questions about the jobs to be done before we move on to the other research? All right. The next one is really exciting. Tim and I partnered on some problem validation around the remote and virtual repositories. We heard quite a bit from our users. This is a problem space that is a little ambiguous in certain areas because the way your organization is structured, or even the size of your organization, really influences how you would want to connect to remote repositories compared to the GitLab repository and what they want from their virtual repository. I'm going to go through the process of creating individual insights, but here are kind of the list of the major things that Tim and I heard. And I'll just go through them. Our current naming conventions won't scale for a lot of our customers. We need to have it more flexible so that they can directly interact with third-party package managers without having to completely redo their systems. and their setups. So one of the things we discovered was really important is that when you have a large organization with many business units, with many tech teams, they don't want to be prescriptive and say you have to use this container registry. They want or this package registry. They want a solution that's flexible enough to be able to accommodate anything they're currently using and create a better experience on GitLab. And the naming conventions just don't quite allow for that right now. We discovered that projects had a pretty solid 50-50 mix between public packages or open source packages and private custom built packages, which helps us kind of scale some of those things. The number one thing we kept hearing, especially from the DevOps managers, is that developers don't want to think about how packages dependencies are resolved. They just kind of want it solved and figured out for them, whether it's the order that you look at a repository or anything like that. They'd really like to set it up for them, and developers just want it to work.
Can I add a note on the previous item, Ian, which was the 50-50 mixture? That did change from interview to interview. Sometimes it was 60-40, sometimes it was, but 50-50 on average. And I should say that for the private packages, or for public packages rather, sometimes those were hosted in things like npmjs.com, but also some customers mentioned that they pay like a consulting company to put up a private S3 server somewhere that has packages that were specifically built for them. So it's a combination. It's not just coming from the, even though they're public, they're not just coming from the public main repositories. They could come from a variety of different sources.
Thanks for adding that, Tim. Where was I? Model repos will scope packages based on the feature level. This is an insight that just kind of helps us understand how scopes work for different organizations. So bringing it down to the feature level helps us understand how they're going to break it up. Users really do want that universal endpoint. They would like to be able to call GitLab and say, I want this package, and for GitLab to figure out where it is based on the list of repositories they have. And they'd like that for all the different package managers. Again, this kind of leads into they don't want their developers to have to deal with solving this problem, instead focus on building great stuff for their customers. And we heard that whether it was an engineering manager or a DevOps manager or even a system architect, we kind of heard that same thread over and over again. Users care more about caching for stability than pipeline performance. I walked into this conversation with the hypothesis that it was really important that pipelines are faster because they get charged per minute and they only have so many of them. It was not as important. The thing that mattered most to them is if NPM goes down, I don't want my builds to suddenly start failing, which is a story we heard from one of our users of the maintainer of a third-party package, took it down to rename it, and for a good 2 hours, we couldn't build anything. And so if we had a customer complaint or something we needed to push immediately, we were just stuck and had no way around it. With caching, we would have the ability to keep moving forward even though this third party went down. So that was what was really important to them, and that kind of changed my perspective around why the caching is so important for them. Scanning and security was another big thing that kept coming up, is especially for the really large organizations, they wanted to be able to say this is a block list of packages that we don't want, or these are license types that we don't want. We also heard the opposite of we want the approved license types, or be able to restrict it in some ways. So being able to pull in from everywhere through GitLab and then have GitLab say, this is approved, this isn't approved, this is, you should check it, kind of idea came out quite a few times. Based on all of the research, Tim created, I didn't take credit for this one, an investigation issue for, I think, 13.1, for us to really look at the technical implementation of what it means to create these remote repositories, what users want, think about how the UI should be set up. So I think we have a good milestone to kind of explore the idea. That was a lot of insights. Does anybody have any questions or any comments?
Ian, one thing I noticed is we have the investigation issue, and I think that has implications for back end and front end, but should we create a design issue, something for you that says like to actually design the user interface?
I think I have an issue that is dedicated to designing at least the setup of the remote repositories. I'm really happy to work either way. If we think that in this situation, the design can help lead and guide the development conversation, then it makes sense to do it all in the same investigation issue. If we think it'll be the backend implements it and then the front end UI needs to be implemented, then a separate issue, I'm good either way.
Okay, let me think about it.
If not a design, a list of what the capability that we want to give to the user. So like, this is a system that can be like on the go, working on its own, just with backend code, but we may want to give some control and oversight to the users. So maybe we want to list those. So for the front-end research, it's easier. Make sense?
I think what you're saying is that we should at least make sure that the user actions that they could take are well defined, so that when we think about both the back end and front end, that we have clear definitions of what they could do. Yeah, I think we could do that. That actually is surprisingly missing from that investigation issue. I defined I went and was thinking more about the API that we would build for the back end, but not necessarily in terms of user actions. So I think we could add that in.
Yeah, so the reason why this came to my mind is that I'm seeing a lot of frustration when they like the system go on its own. It works 99% of the time, and then that 1% of the time that it doesn't work and the user doesn't have a way to check or to fix it manually, they just get really frustrated.
Okay. Take a note.
I just wanted to call out, as we go through this investigation issue, if there's a usability question about what do users think about this or how will this impact them, even if it is on the API side, feel free to ping me and bring me into the conversation. I'll be happy to jump in and say, you know, users talked about this specifically. Here's that use case we heard. So I'm happy to jump in and help guide those conversations as well. Any other thoughts or questions around remote and virtual repository problem validation? All right. I think,
sorry.
Tim, you have...
Oh, I think Nick was going to ask something.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what the universal endpoint is referring to. Is that just a single URL that any package manager can just pull from, and like the endpoint will be smart enough to work out what type of package is being pulled, or is that something slightly different?
I think it would be limited to package format. So it wouldn't be like one endpoint and it could resolve NPM and Maven packages, but you would have one, you could create one grouped endpoint that would resolve all of the different like endpoints that are grouped within it. So for instance, you could set up like NPM private 1, NPM private 2, NPM public 1, NPM public 2. And then you could group those in order, whatever order you want behind one endpoint, and it'll know to go through the list of 4 in the order you specified.
Right. So the goal being that when you create one of these endpoints, you can also create a list of allowed and disallowed packages associated with each universal endpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you would be able to basically, publishing would still work the same. You would probably still publish to the project level, or to, if it's a monorepo, to the feature level. But then when you go to install a package, you would just use your npm. Oh, hi, Ellie. That's not fair as a distraction.
So I guess I'm just curious then, would this be classified as a package feature or like a dependency proxy feature? It's essentially a proxy.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it as, basically it's expanding the dependency proxy to cover the package registry. So there's a Venn diagram there for sure.
Cool.
I'm wondering if there is a way we could use the same prefix for all package managers. So like right now we have the prefixes all defined in Workhorse of the different endpoints that we can accept, and they all like include like /maven or /npm. I wonder for a given project, for example, if we could just have it be like project packages and then use that for all package endpoints, and then allow users to be able to upload any package type. Like, just kind of thinking out loud. I don't know if that's possible.
It should be possible. you can detect what kind of client is requesting the endpoint, and from there you can know if it's npm. You're looking for npm packages, but
How do you
that's
detect
what.
that?
Sorry.
How would you go and detect that? Because different registry can be used with different clients, right?
It's in the HTTP headers, but it's quite advanced and things could be broken easily. So I'm not sure that it's a good idea to have one single URL for all the package types.
And that, like, you could also kind of detect, because each package client does have a different set of API endpoints. So like the actual routes for npm are different from the routes from the other package managers. I don't think there's any collisions in that respect.
We could have some collisions. We have some, you know, the last parameters. There are some ones that are globing everything that is under this parameter, and we could have some nasty surprises there.
That's true. Yeah, there are a lot where it's just take everything, because it resolves to a path usually.
And I don't know how common it is for people to use multiple for one team to use multiple different types of packages. Like, is it common for people to use Maven and npm and NuGet? So I don't know.
Yes.
It is common.
I mean, even us, we use JavaScript and Ruby, right? So we have
That's right.
npm package, okay, Ruby gems, but my question is, when we talk about universal endpoint, we are not really talking about an endpoint for all the package type, but more like one entry point for all the registry, locally and external and third party and whichever, right? Or I misunderstood this part?
That's the basic premise, is they would like an endpoint to go and get an npm package from any of the registries or repositories that they have. And then from the DevOps position, they'd like to be able to stack rank them. So they can set the order saying, first check GitLab, then check S3, then check this other one, and then lastly, go see if it's in NPM. And they want to be able to organize it. And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that based on each package type, could also change the different ways that they want to navigate that and order the priorities. So that might be another reason we might want to make them different per package type.
Yeah, if it would help, I could pause the video and I could bring up a demo of one of our competitors. I could just show how they're doing it. Okay.